Right, I'm only going to skim through this article whilst we wait for Jolene to join the StreamYard. However, Jolene Bunting banned from harassing a Belfast drag queen. Now you can find this article, as you see, it's BBC. It's very recently, 3 days ago. I'll also play the video of her talking about it. I probably should have done first, but oh well. I'm not going to mention what the Hello Plant Crusader. Hope you're okay. I'm not going to mention the actual person's name, the drag queen, but it is in this article, as you can see. A former Belfast councillor who compared a drag queen to a wolf in makeup has been barred from any further harassment of him. She received a 5-year injunction from him. She's not allowed to contact him or talk about him for 5 years. So here is the video. Is there no sound? Is there no sound? There should be sound. Give me 2 seconds then, everyone. Alright, 2 seconds and I will just put this onto StreamYard.
Side court where I have been given a 5-year injunction, which means that I cannot contact or
just checking, is that okay, everyone?
Mention a drag queen who has decided to take a civil case against me. I will be appealing this case. The reality is I don't care about any individual drag queen. What I do care about is our children and protecting the innocence of our children. Drag queens are adult entertainment, and I believe that wholeheartedly, and I will not be silenced from saying this. Unfortunately, the justice system is rather flawed. I will be taking this injunction to an appeal. I have spent the last year going through the courts, and I believe I will be going through the courts for quite a while still to ensure that justice is given. Please stand with me, protect our children from the sexualisation that is going on, not just in Northern Ireland, but across the UK and indeed across the world. We can see our children being given information that will which will change the whole of humanity. They're given information on sexual fetishes which should never be allowed to happen. I'm a mother, my children are 8 and 10, and I will not allow them to be indoctrinated into this world, and I hope that all you mothers and fathers out there will stand with me and say my children will not be indoctrinated into this world. The justice system may be against us, but God is with us.
So Jolene is ex-councillor from Belfast. Obviously, as much as everyone, she is completely livid over the drag queen story hour situation, the indoctrinating our kids, and propaganda of LGBT. If you give me a thumbs up, Jolene, just make sure you're okay. Ready? Cool. So I'll bring you on. So how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So would you just want to give a little background into who you are?
Well, I'm a former Belfast City Councillor. I was elected in 2014. I am a Christian Conservative, and I'm a mother of 2, and I want to protect my children. Over the course of my time in politics, I have been targeted for speaking out against things that the establishment don't like you speaking out against, whether that be immigration or government policies which are destroying this nation. And the latest thing is this LGBTP plus agenda, which is being pushed on our children. And these are children as young as 6 and 7 years old, which are having this agenda pushed on them. I believe that children should remain innocent until as long as possible. And I certainly do not want what is being pushed on them, on my children, pushed on them. However, I don't seem to have a choice. I always say it's Pandora's box, because you can deal with one issue, but there's so many underlying issues which open up when you deal with one issue. So this whole scenario started when my children were forced to actually see a man in a thong at a Queen's Jubilee party. So I attended a Queen's Jubilee party, and this bloke was in a thong in public, and I was horrified, and I took a photo of him and I put it on social media saying how horrified I was, as any parent would. I then was cautioned by police. 3 days later, police came to my door, and I was cautioned by police for having a photo of this street artist. You know, this bloke was dancing in the street for children. He had been brought in as a child entertainer, and as I say, he was dancing in the street, and I took a photo of him, and I was cautioned for that. Now, obviously, I didn't break any laws by taking a photo of him, and that was no further action. However, a few days later, I received a video, and this bloke, obviously, even though he is a children's entertainer, some days he also does sexualized shows in nightclubs, where he does quite rude things regularly. And one of these shows, he decided to have a blow-up sex doll with my face on it. And he stripped the doll and put it into all sorts of positions. He beat the doll and he threw it off stage. And when I contacted the police just had no time for me. They didn't so much as go out and visit this man, even though I've been cautioned for something far less intrusive to his personal life. So this kind of opened doors for me to start looking at drag queens as children's entertainment. Obviously, we had seen reports of burlesque shows from the US, and even on the mainland UK. We have had flowjob in school. So I had heard the horror stories on social media. I didn't research it close to home, and when I started to research close to home, I realised that drag queen storytime is very much active, even in the most conservative communities. And I mean, Northern Ireland is one of the most conservative communities within the UK. So I was quite surprised that drag queen storytime being part of the life in Belfast city centre, and I wasn't happy with it, and I protested against it. Later that week, the drag queen who was reading the stories then, and I apologise because I'm thinking very hard here, because obviously I have an injunction and I can't speak about Z drag queen, but I do want to give you a wee bit of context around this. He then went on to ITV and done an interview saying how special and honest story drag queen storytime was. We know through multiple stories from around the UK and from further afield as well, the drag queen storytime isn't always as honest and special as some people would want us to believe. And I basically put newspaper articles together which said this, and I was subject to a court order which told me to remove that. There was mix up with my legal representation, and the video wasn't removed. I got a conditional discharge, which is actually under appeal, for not removing the video. And then the substantial case was heard 4 months after the hearing. We got the judgment, and to everyone's surprise who was in the hearing and who heard the evidence that was given, the judge has decided to give me a 5-year injunction, which basically means I can't speak to this man or speak about him. And I'll be honest, I'll probably never speak to this man in my life. I haven't spoke to him. I've never actually said his name in public. However, the judge has felt it necessary to give me this 5-year injunction. I have been speaking to legal professionals, obviously, throughout the week. And what I am hearing from these legal professionals is that they've actually dealt with domestic abuse, relationship abuse, where the person who has been maybe beating their partner for years gets an injunction, and it's only for a year. So this is completely disproportionate from anything that has happened before. There's no precedent set on a 5-year injunction for such trivial actions, and I'll be taking that to appeal. But it does open a lot of questions about our justice system and why I have been given this injunction, and what we as a community have to do to speak out against this agenda that is being pushed on our young children. And I worry that this has set now a precedent that we are going to be unable to oppose this agenda being pushed on our children. And I'm sorry, but I live in a free nation, and if it's not free, then we must ensure that our freedoms are kept and our freedoms are met. And if our government are suppressing our freedoms, then we have to challenge that.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, that's definitely one of the best introductions I've ever had on this show, so thank you very much. So you were a chancellor. We'll just backtrack a little bit, and then we'll get on to the drag queen story. You were a chancellor in Belfast, weren't you? You were removed, if I'm right.
Yeah, so, I spoke out about immigration, and there was multiple complaints put in by other political parties, and again, completely unprecedented. They suspended me while the investigation was taking place. Now that was 2017, and I am still waiting on the results of that investigation. So I was suspended from my seat when I was an elected councillor. I did lose my seat in 2019 thanks to the, not being able to represent my constituents in the way that I should have been able to. But the investigation still hasn't concluded in that, and those complaints still haven't been dealt with.
Okay, so very much impartiality and not freedom of speech quite a lot then, I guess, that you've experienced.
Yeah, I have been. I know that my views aren't the establishment's push towards the establishment's agenda, and I knew that I would get a backlash. I didn't expect the backlash that I got, and the establishment and the powers that be have basically tried to silence me at every corner.
Yeah, same with alternative media. Do that to basically everyone who has a different opinion to them. So obviously the drag queen story, it was in July, wasn't it?
Was it June? June, July.
So how did it go? How did you get good numbers against it?
Yeah, there was a protest, and then there was a counter protest, and it was absolutely. It was one of the more successful protests I've been to. There was quite a good number of people. There was a wide variety of people who might not necessarily agree with all my politics, but they feel strongly about this, and they turned up, and it actually, I made a lot of good friends at that protest, and most people are horrified by the fact that obviously I've had to go through the courts for that reason. But yeah, the protest was a complete success. There was a complaint put in because one of our activists was called quite disgusting names by the counter protest, the LGBT plus counter protests, and there was a hate crime reported to police on the day. Police didn't clarify which group that came from, but there was a hate crime against the protest which I had helped organise. And that wasn't really made clear in the media. They kind of tried to twist that as they do, to make it look like we weren't as peaceful as we were. And, you know, I spoke to people there on the day who had no idea what had actually happened in England with other drag queens, you know, saying vile things about children and being caught with child pornography and things like that. You know, I spoke to people on the day who were taking their children to Drag Queen Storytime who had no idea that this had happened. And I was quite pleased to be able to inform them and give them the information that they might decide themselves not to take their children and indoctrinate their children in that way. And I hope that by me highlighting this, that parents will question who is entertaining their children, because it doesn't matter whether they're dressed up as a woman or a clown. We must ensure that our children are safeguarded, and that was one of my main issues with this particular Drag Queen Storytime. Because this event was happening on a one-off occasion, the people who were entertaining the children weren't actually vetted at all. Therefore, anyone could have been coming into a room full of very young children, and that doesn't sit comfortably with me, and I doubt that it would sit comfortably with most parents.
So, I just want to get your opinion on this, because in my opinion, they probably do. Do you think a lot of, you know, parents with young kids, they're going along with this whole LGBT narrative, taking their kids to Drag Queen Story House, so they're not called transphobic, they're not, you know, called anything that, you know, the left would call them?
I think they are trying to, I think anyone who is taking their children they're trying to be nice. And this is something that really frustrates me, because we as Christian conservatives are made out to be these horrible people who don't want, you know, the amount of times that I've been called a fascist, and a fascist wants to take away your rights. I want to give people more rights. And I think these people they think that by virtue signaling, by taking their children to these events, that they are doing society a favour, and you know, in their head, I think that's how they justify it. But if we look at wider society, and if this agenda does get pushed on our children, how it is being pushed, and the next generation coming up, and how that's going to affect them, it's actually not going to do humanity as a whole no favours. So I think these people, they're virtue signaling. They are trying to impress. They're trying to say, you know, I'm not one of these fascist people who want to take away your rights. And I want to make this very clear. I want to take no one's rights away from them, but I do want the right to protect children. And whether that's my children or someone else's children, I will protect them, because they aren't able to protect themselves. They don't know what is going on. And unless us as adults stand up for them, then they are in danger. And if I see a child in danger, it's human instinct to protect them, and I will continue to do that.
So you mentioned that you have your kids of your own. Have they experienced any sort of, you know, propaganda from LGBT or anything? I don't know how they're schooled or anything, but
I'm very lucky to have quite a conservative school for my children, and I can't fault their primary school at all. However, the sex education curriculum that is in Scotland isn't in Northern Ireland just yet, and I know that is being pushed through the political system, and I am very afraid that the schools are just going to go along with this. My children are very awake to this. Obviously, being who I am, campaigning the way I do, they probably know more than most children would at their age. That doesn't give me any joy to say, because as I say, I want to protect their innocence as much as possible, but I've had to kind of sit them down and explain it to them. They only, you know, with the likes of Cartoon Network, Disney Plus, that kind of thing. I'm very lucky to have very sensible children who have come to me and said, "Mummy, you know, I've just watched a cartoon where there has been rainbow flags everywhere and they're celebrating Pride." I've just watched. I mean, I have seen videos where the cartoons are supposed to be quite innocent, and they're, from an adult's point of view, they're not as innocent as they're supposed to be. Especially on the likes of Cartoon Network and other so-called kids channels. And I have had to tell my children that they're not allowed to watch Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney Plus, those kind of channels, because of some of the things that I've actually seen on those. And that's quite frustrating for me as a mother, because the children are going into school and they don't know the latest trends and they don't know the latest crazes, because they are coming from those sources, and my children aren't allowed to watch those. And I'll be honest, they don't want to watch them. But when I see that, you know, maybe the children are running around with Disney backpacks or whatever, I do kind of think to myself, you know, if only someone had took control sooner. Because I do think that this agenda is now deeply rooted in not only mainstream news outlets, but even the soaps, even, you know, children's television. I love a good murder mystery, and the amount of programs where I have watched which have same-sex couples in them and things like that. You know, I don't think any child hasn't encountered this in this agenda, but as parents, we must teach them how to deal with it.
Yes, in my high school, I'm in Norwich in England.
Mm-hmm.
There was trans posters, bisexual posters everywhere. They'd celebrate Pride. There was a lot of, since I've left, there's been a few teachers that have come out, like they've been reported as paedophiles. They were sleeping with 14-year-olds in the school. So yeah, I'm glad your kids definitely aren't experiencing that. That's very good.
Yeah, this is, you know, I know that my mum never had these conversations with me. There was never any need to, but I do think, you know, as conservative parents, all of us, we need to sit down with our children and not explain in detail, but just explain that there's evil in this world, and that evil is trying to get into their wee heads, and that they have to protect themselves as much as we as parents can protect them. The reality is that they have to be armed with the knowledge to protect themselves, first and foremost. That if someone does approach them, if someone does try to push this on them, that they have the confidence to say no and to get to their parents as soon as possible. And that's, you know, my children have been told to, if something like that happens in school, just walk out of the classroom and leave the school if you have to. If someone won't ring me, you know, leave the school and contact me, because I have to arm them with that knowledge of what to do. And I think all conservative parents need to sit down with their children and give them that knowledge and that confidence that they can come to them with any issues, and they won't be in trouble, because I think a lot of the time this is pushed that if you do kind of object to this, you're going to be labelled, you could be arrested. I know that better than most, you know, and I think children are afraid sometimes to speak out, even when they know that things are wrong. You know, I think most children know that no man should be running around in a thong in their presence. But I think a lot of children just would be too afraid to point out that that's wrong.
Yeah, because if it was, a woman doing it, or if it was just a normal man doing it as a joke, as a, sexual thing, they would be arrested. But just because, they're part of a community that is claimed to be a minority, it's totally fine.
Yeah, and that's that's our justice system, that's our policing. And how we get a grip of this, I have no idea, because it has been totally. I don't want to say it has been totally hijacked, but the reality is that governmental bodies all over have been hijacked. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure England is worse than Northern Ireland, but even our buses have pride flags on them, and let's celebrate Pride on our buses. I don't want to see, as a Christian, I don't want to see that. And I don't know how we are going to go backwards, that this isn't acceptable. I don't know how we get a grip of this, but what I do know is that people need to stop being afraid. Stop being afraid to speak your mind. And I have gay family members, I have gay friends, and if you actually, if you are worried about offending them, actually sit down and have a conversation. And I think it's something that we're not great at doing as the British culture, because we usually have the stiff upper lip. But I think sometimes these things could be resolved by actually sitting down with family members and friends and talking it out, because the majority of people who are gay, who aren't pushing they aren't pushing an agenda, and they simply want to get on with their lives. And I think, the majority of gay people do simply want to get on with their lives, and they understand that this, agenda that is being pushed is more detrimental to their cause than anything that has been done in the past. I mean, it hasn't been 40 years since gay people were decriminalized, and people fought for that for so long, to actually start alienating themselves again. And that's what I've been getting from people who are gay, who have been speaking to me about it, is that they don't want to be alienated from society again, simply because these men want to push this agenda on to our children. And as we know, so many of them have been caught with child pornography. So many of them have much more malicious intentions. And if you speak about that, you are liable for court action. And I think that's totally wrong.
I have a very, very touchy subject, but you have to talk about these things. So, when I was in school, I was taught. Sexual education started when I was 8. Now, 6-year-olds can be taught about masturbation. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the age of sex education should be increased?
Absolutely. And I'm 31, and I remember we didn't have sex education until we were in secondary school. There was no sexual education in primary school at all. My wee one, my son, the youngest one, he's 8, and he wouldn't have a clue what you would be speaking about if you started speaking about sex education in front of him. He just doesn't know. He's that innocent. And I believe that all 8-year-olds should be that innocent. They shouldn't know what sex is. They shouldn't know, that intercourse even exists at that age. They are only learning, the ways of the world. They don't need the complications that come with sexuality and sexual feelings. And the longer we can keep that from them, I believe the better. However, this agenda seems to be pushing it younger and younger. And I think, not only the age of sexual education needs to be increased, but I also do think that the age of consent needs to be increased. I think we are putting a lot of responsibility on 16-year-olds at the minute. And I don't believe that they have the life skills at that age, especially in today's society. You know, I always think of my mum, who was working for years when she was 16. She went work from she was 13. And I think of her generation and how much more mature they would have been at 16 compared to today's generation, where they are mollycoddled. They're not sent to work. Most children nowadays don't even do chores around the house because it's just not the done thing. So how can we expect these teenagers, these adolescents who have had all sorts of hormone changes within their body, have had all sorts of lifestyle changes within such a short period of time? How can we be placing the responsibility on them to make these life-changing decisions? I do believe that we should have the age of being an adult is 18, and the age of consent should be 18. But instead we're placing more pressure onto a 16-year-old than they need to. I remember when I was 16, all my friends were, you know, that's all they wanted to do was go out and get a boyfriend. And I think, you know, I think at 16 you should be focusing on your studies and on your future. And maybe that's why a lot of young people are failing, because we are putting, society are putting the pressure of things that shouldn't be put on them. And I do think there is definitely room for manoeuvre to make society just that little bit of a better place.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts on it. So, what is coming now of your situation with the injunction? Are you going to appeal? What's going on? Are you going to take it further? What are the plans?
Yeah, I'm going to appeal the 5-year injunction. As I say, I'm never going to contact this bloke. I never want to speak about this bloke. I never want to see him. However, I have, in my view, I have done absolutely nothing wrong. I put together publicly available information and I put it out into the public domain with other sources which were linked. And I don't believe that I have done anything wrong, and I will appeal this, and I believe this is probably going to go on for another year or so. I have had this hanging over me for nearly a year now. I think it's going to go on for at least another year. I also have other court cases coming up, and I am dealing with quite a lot through the justice system. I'm in court nearly at least once every 2 weeks for different things that the state have thrown at me. And I do believe that it is a political attack. I believe that they don't want me speaking out anymore, and they are trying to grind me down. I'm just really lucky to be a strong person, to have a great family connection that are going to keep me strong. But yes, I will be appealing this injunction, and I hope that at the end of it, we can start to have a conversation of how we can oppose this without having these civil backlashes. Because the reality is, if I wanted to take a civil case, it would be too expensive for me to take. However, I have had a civil case taken on me, and until we get to a fair society where we are able to oppose things, and people are able to oppose our beliefs as well, I believe that we need our justice system, we need our policing system to allow for conversation. And I think a lot of the time we as conservatives are being told to sit down and shut up, and if we don't, then we're in trouble. and that's that's not just myself, it's UNN being picked off the social medias. It's multiple alternative medias not being able to put factual information out to the public without interference. And until that conversation isn't happening, and at the minute we're talking about it as conservatives, the left are talking about it amongst themselves. But I think as a society we need to come together, and we have to have debate. We have to thrash these issues out. And if we don't start to do that, we're plummeting to dictatorship, where we will be silenced. And I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to live like that. My grandfather went to the Second World War to ensure that I didn't have to live like that, and I'm not going to let him and his memory be failed by this generation just because they want to seem like they're nice. If I don't seem nice, well, that's other people's opinions. I'm doing this with the clearest of conscience and with the goodness in my heart. I don't want to take anybody's rights away from them. I don't want to harm anyone. I want to protect children, and if that can't be accepted, we're living in a very dangerous society.
How can people support you through all of this? Obviously through your social media, which is at Jolene Bunting UK on Twitter. Is there any other way people can support you through all of this?
I'm on my social media. I mean, I need people to follow me. This isn't going to be a short process. And at the beginning, there was loads of engagement and most people were following it. However, it takes its toll on people, when I'm in and out of court, when there's more layers added to the story. People get frustrated and they lose interest. I just want people to follow this story, and if you support me, speak out. Follow me on Twitter, Gab, Telegram, and I'm on every social media bar Facebook. Come on to my social media, send me a message of support if you can, and those messages get me through the day. Those messages, there are days when I just think, the system's against me, and it is hard. But when I get those messages of support from parents who are in the same boat as me, but maybe can't speak out for their jobs or for whatever reason, I'm glad to be that voice. So yeah, just follow me. I do have an activism donation page, and that's for placards and things like that when I do protests. Unfortunately, things have had to be put on the back burner because I had this court order in place, and now I have the injunction. But I will be as active as always. I will continue to speak out so long as I have the support from the wider public, and so long as I know all us conservative parents are standing together and that I'm not alone.
Okay, brilliant. Well, if there's any updates, of course, you can send it to myself. I'll get you on. We'll get someone from UNN to bring you on. I'm going to start my own shows after, the summer holidays, so you can come on my show at that time. Any updates, please send it my way.
I will indeed. Thank you so much for having me on. Unfortunately, I can't go into too much detail, and there's so much I want to tell you all regarding the courts and things like that. And transcripts from the courts will be made public when I get this over and done with, and when I am allowed to speak more about it. The society has took a turn for the worse. But so long as we stick together, I think we can change things. I have hope. I have faith that God will take back this nation, because we are losing it. And I hope that maybe next time we speak, we'll be in a better position.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope everything goes well.
Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's Jolene, everyone. Obviously, please do support her. She's going through a rough time at the moment. As a lot of people are when it comes to, the trans movement, which is really unfortunate because, well, I think Tankman here says it perfectly. Fair enough that trans people have always existed. Hopefully they continue to. It's the constant affirmation and attention they seek that annoys me personally. And that's what, away from, the drag queen story, the trans lot, that's what they do. They're constantly asking for the attention. They make it their entire personality, like I said earlier. Same now with Drag Queen Story Hour. They make it whole, you're being transphobic, you're being homophobic, things like that. We just don't want drag queens reading to our kids. That's all. We don't want sexualized content in front of our kids. We think that our kids are too vulnerable and innocent for that. It shouldn't be happening.